stand here. Come.
So my name is Yuval Aran. We are now standing in front of my parents' house. I've lived my entire life in Be'eri. My grandparents were part of the founders of Be'eri, and we've always lived here. We've always regarded Be'eri as being paradise. A small, quiet place. Even now you can see how beautiful it is. And we used to say Be'eri is 99% heaven, 1% hell. Every once in a while, every few months, we'll have rockets fired at us. But it's one of those things that we kind of got used to. We've always believed that everything will be okay. There was a rocket alarm, we'll go in the safe house, in the safe room, count to 10 and go out and continue our lives. I also always lived here and always believed there can be peace. I've never even imagined anything like this can happen. I still don't believe it. What happened here is unimaginable. On October 7, there were 10 members of my family in Be'eri, and by some trick of fate, I wasn't here. A friend of mine invited me to a festival near Elat, so I was very far away, but I woke up at around 6:30 a.m. I went to have coffee and sat with a friend, and he started saying something is happening in Be'eri. So I thought to myself, like I always do, there is alarms, but it's okay, I'll call my mother, see that everything is okay, and continue with my life. I called my mother. She answered whispering, and she said something along the lines of, all of us are in the safe room, we're okay, but I have to hang up. And she never answered to me whispering, so it was weird. I didn't know what was going on. I tried to ask her questions, but she said she had to hang up. Later, I found out that there were already terrorists outside of their house, and she didn't want them to hear. In this house, there was my parents, my older sister Adi, Adi's husband Tal, their two children, Naveh, who is 8 years old, and Yael, we call her Yula, who was 3 years old. Only after about 5 hours, we also found out that my aunt Sharon and my cousin Noam, who is 12, were here as well. Later on, you can go inside the house and you can see the safe room. It's a very, very tiny room where everyone hid together for hours. I was still in contact with my family. We wrote messages, and in the first few hours, they said everything is fine. Today I know that they just wanted to protect me and not really tell me what was going on. What we found out later is that at around 6:30 a.m. my father woke up, and he had this, in Israel we have an app that shows us when there are alarms. I would always tell my father, why do you need this app? We would sit here on the back porch, his phone would start ringing, we would run to the safe room, and then he would say, oh, it's Ashkelon, sorry. So I always tell him, you will hear the alarm, you don't need the app. But on October 7th, the app is possibly what saved my family's life. At 6:30 a.m., my father woke up from all the alarms. He immediately ran upstairs. It doesn't exist anymore, but upstairs there was a family unit. My sister and Tal used to live in Be'eri up until 4 years ago, and they left Be'eri mostly because they didn't want to raise their children in an environment where they didn't think is safe. So they were in the family unit. My aunt Sharon and Noam were downstairs. My father gathered everyone and led them to the safe room. We know that very fast they started to hear gunshots and RPGs and laughing, hysterical laughing. like people having the time of their lives. They were in the safe room for 4 hours. They were shot at, they were burned, and they didn't have any way to protect themselves. All of them just woke up in their beds, in their pajamas. You know, it's my sister and her husband came to visit my family for the holiday. I think all of us at some point in our life went to our parents for the holiday. You come and you think everything is alright. You know, they had a very nice family dinner at Friday night and they woke up at Saturday to hell. They were all in the safe room for 4 hours and they didn't have any way to protect themselves. They didn't have any weapons, they didn't even have any knives or anything. They didn't have anything. They are civilians in their homes, grandparents with their grandchildren, fathers and mothers with their children, a 3-year-old girl.
Is it that girl here?
Yeah.
Yes.
bottom right.
Yes. At around 10:30 a.m., we lost all contact. My father sent me a message which will be the last message I ever received from my father. And he wrote, Yuvi, we love you. We are in very, very big trouble and I hope we make it. And other than that, we lost all communication. I thought that they're in the safe room, they lost internet, they lost connection, they don't have electricity. I sent messages to their neighbors. I sent messages to friends who live here. Everyone had one V on WhatsApp. So I was naive, I thought everything is okay. Until Sunday afternoon. At Sunday afternoon was the first time that someone from our side was able to reach the house. They took photos to show us it's really the house and they told us the safe room is empty, there are no bodies and there are no blood. 2 days later, my uncle was here and he crawled all around the safe room looking for any evidence of what happened. At around Sunday afternoon when we got this message was the first time that I realized, and it's absurd to say it, but I really realized that we are praying that my family was kidnapped. Because by that point, either you would get a phone call from the people who were rescued, or it's not good news. We immediately, me and my little sister in Be'er Sheva, we immediately started praying that they were kidnapped and started doing everything we can. I don't have to explain to you how weird it is to hope your family was kidnapped. For a week and a half, my father and also my aunt and uncle that live about 200 meters in this direction were all of them considered kidnapped. In the end, now we realize the army didn't really know anything. No one here knew anything. After a week and a half, on the morning, we got a phone call letting us know that my uncle Tari was identified and he was murdered. We immediately say, okay, but we have to keep going. At night, unfortunately, I was in Herzliya and we heard a knock at the door and an army officer came to tell us that my father was murdered. I remember this moment as being one of the hardest moments of my life, not only because I found out that my father was murdered, but also because before breaking down completely, I had to ask her if that's all she came to tell me. Because from that point onward, we were afraid of a knock at the door at any second, of a phone call, of something bad happening. After another week, we found out that my aunt Lilach was also murdered. For 7 months now, I'm sorry. After 50 days of doing everything we can, we decided as a family that we're not going to give up and we're not going to let anyone tell us what to do and we're going to do everything we can. We were very involved. I was the one who also led and created the first march of the hostage families. And a week later we had a deal that it's really a miracle that 6 members of my family returned to us. You can see them here, my mother Shoshan, Adi my sister, Nave who is 8 years old, Yula who is now 4 years old, she was 3 years old, Noam who is 12, and Sharon, all of them returned to us.
Through the hostage deal?
Through the hostage deal. They came back on day 50, it was the second day of the deal. And I think it was the happiest moment of my life. Seeing a 3-year-old girl who we really had no idea if she's alive or dead. Seeing my nephew is 8 years old, it was a blessing. We had about 5 hours of being really happy, and then we realized it wasn't enough. Because the children's father, Tal, my brother-in-law, is still there. 6 months ago, his children came back and Tal is still over there. Along with Tal, there are still 132 hostages. We still have 11 hostages from Be'eri. All of them taken from around here. In this house, Oad Ben Ami was taken. About 400 meters from us, Carmel Gat was taken. And all the houses here, hostages were taken. Now today is 214 days. We don't know anything. We know Tal was taken alive. In a house really close to here is the house of the Gat family. Alon Gat, who was in my class, we grew up together, one of my very good friends I've known my entire life, was taken with his wife and his 3-year-old daughter. Right before the car left Be'eri, he saw that Tal is being led to the car, alive and uninjured, and put in the trunk of the car they were in. They started driving toward Gaza. About 200 meters before Gaza, they saw a tank. We know now the tank wasn't ours anymore. But the terrorists stopped to check things out. Alon's wife, Yarden, took their 3-year-old daughter, and they both jumped out of the car. They started running, and after a few minutes they saw that Yarden saw she couldn't run fast enough, so she gave Alon their daughter. Alon started running, and while being shot at, managed to hide in one of the fields. He had to wait about 12 hours until night, and sneak back and join and see the forces that were already here. From him, we actually knew the only thing we ever really known was that Tal was taken hostage and he's alive. Tal was taken alive. It's been 214 days of not knowing anything else. But for me, it's when I don't know anything, I choose to believe what will give me strength. I choose to believe that Tal is alive, and I choose to believe Tal will come back to us with the rest of the hostages. But as we know, as time goes by, they're not held in any kind of a humanitarian way. We don't even know if they're getting food, if they're getting water, sanitary conditions. We don't even know if they have toilets. What we do know is that from this house, this was the house of Orit Svirsky. From this house, Itai Svirsky was taken. And unfortunately, we know that after 99 days, Itai was murdered while in captivity. You know, it's been 214 days. Yesterday, there started to be rumors that Hamas is taking the deal. We've had so many days that we heard rumors, and as family, every time we hear something, we have to hope it's real. We have to hope it's gonna happen. We can't do anything other than that. We know that if it doesn't happen, we'll break down. Yesterday night, we went to protest the entire night. We still hope the deal will happen. But I can tell you, I've lived my entire life in Be'eri. My job was in Be'eri, my house is in Be'eri. My partner moved to Be'eri on the 1st of July. I don't have anything in my life right now, and it doesn't matter. The only thing that's really urgent, the only thing that we don't have time for, the only thing we really have to take care of now is to bring the hostages back. Because there are people we can save. And if we can save them, we have to save them. I don't care about revenge. I don't care about continuing the war unless it's to bring the hostages back. I don't need anything. I care about the living. I care about the hostages. I want Tal back alive. I want all of the hostages back alive. And I want the hostages that will never return alive, like Itai. Bring them back. Let their family have closure. I mean, we're standing here, and one of the most difficult things standing here is realizing that I can get in a car and drive about 15, 30, 40 minutes. I don't know where they are. We have no idea. We don't know anything. But from here to Rafiah will take you about 30 minutes. To Tel Aviv is much farther than to the farthest point in Gaza. Tal and Oad and Carmel and Eli and all the rest of the hostages are over here. But we are helpless. So all we can do is pray and come and share our story. It's not easy for me to come to Be'eri. It's not easy for me to stand outside here. There are 6 pictures that are a blessing. There is one picture of Tal that gives us hope. But every time I see the picture of my father, what happened here is unimaginable. But what happened here is not an attack of opportunity. What happened here is an invasion. They knew exactly what they were doing. They came here with the intention of murdering people, kidnapping people, and they didn't care if it's men, women, old people, children. I mean, over here you see the picture of a 3-year-old girl who was held hostage in Gaza for 50 days. Of an 8-year-old boy that we didn't even know if he was alive or if he was being tortured. Right now, there is a baby being held in Gaza that has spent more time in Gaza than outside of it. There are still 2 children, there are 19 women, and there are 132 hostages. The world has started talking about the hostages as if it's part of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, as if it's a political issue. And what I say that it's crazy. Creating this narrative as if the hostages are a part of something bigger, of the political issue, if the hostages are the same thing as humanitarian aid, or if the hostages are the same thing as how many, I don't know. But this narrative needs to change. Because if we don't change the narrative, if the entire world doesn't go around shouting, it is unacceptable to take people, children, from their beds and hold them in unimaginable conditions without even giving us signs of life, letting us know if they have medication, food, water, anything. It's just unacceptable. If we don't stop it now, if we don't shout to the entire world that this is unacceptable, we'll just tell them this is something legitimate. And then we'll start having kidnapping around the entire world. We have kidnappings in Africa, we have kidnappings in Israel, we'll have kidnappings in the United States and Europe and all around the world. Because we are given legitimacy to holding people against their will. We are given legitimacy to holding babies. Because we're talking about this as if it's some kind of political issues. Maybe I had some political ideas before the 7th of October. I don't now. I don't care about politics. I don't care about right or left. I don't care about revenge. I don't care about anything. I just want my family back. And if you want to ask any questions, you can. And also if you want, usually this house is off limits, but when I do the tours it's okay. You can go and see inside the house. You can go and see the safe room. If you go into the safe room, you can see how small it is. Imagine 8 people with 3 children in it for hours. If releasing the people that murdered my father means that we will get to see the hostages back alive, release them. I don't care about this. I care about life. I care about cherishing the sacredness of life. And this is why I'm here, because we need all of you to help us share our stories. We need all of you because my voice is small. Their voice is non-existent. None of us can hear them, so we have to speak for them. And we need all our voices to work together and share this story. And that's why I'm really thankful for you for coming, and that's why I will still continue to come here and tell my story until Tal comes back. Because no one else in my family can. Because my mother can't even think of coming back here yet. Our lives are still frozen on the 7th of October. Until Tal comes back, nothing else matters. Until Carmel and Noad and Eli and all the rest of the hostages come back, nothing else matters to us. I don't care about having a house, a job. I don't care about anything else. So thank you.
Já vê a marca de tiro aqui, ó. A casa toda destruída. Uma das casas invadidas durante o ataque de 7 de outubro. Olha o buraco dos tiros. A porta foi arrebentada. Olha. A casa inteiramente destruída. Inteiramente destruída. Os tiros nas portas. Todos os quartos com marcas de tiro. Todos. É muito difícil estar aqui. O banheiro. Mais um quarto. Mais um quarto. Pertences pessoais. Aqui um banheiro. E aqui o quarto seguro. Que também foi queimado. Ken.
You can see shot through it. Looks like they shot through the door.
O tiro na porta. Esse é um quarto todo de concreto que serve para proteger dos bombardeios. Mais uma vez, invasão em Israel não é comum. Então essas portas, elas não trancam. Provavelmente colocaram alguma coisa aqui para travar a porta e eles atiraram na porta para poder entrar. Toda a família dessa casa foi sequestrada, não se sabe ainda quem está vivo, mas já tem a confirmação de 2 mortos. O resto provavelmente ainda está em Gaza. Olha a quantidade de tiro. as outras casas em volta também, ó. Algumas casas foram pouco afetadas, mas ali ó, também ó, com o telhado já destruído.
Okay.
E isso aqui é pelo simples fato de serem judeus. Invadiram um país, sequestraram crianças, assassinaram crianças, retiraram famílias inteiras de dentro das suas casas, tiraram crianças da cama, assassinaram a sangue frio e também sequestraram para Gaza, pelo simples fato de serem judeus. Infelizmente, quem defende isso é tão bandido quanto quem fez essa atrocidade. Hoje completa 7 meses do ataque de 7 de outubro. É muito difícil estar aqui, muito difícil. Só para você ter uma noção, essa aqui foi a casa que a gente acabou de sair. Dá uma olhadinha o quão perto ela é da fronteira de Gaza. A fronteira de Gaza está aqui. Os terroristas entraram por 4 pontos aqui nessa comunidade e 101 pessoas foram assassinadas nesse condomínio, vamos dizer assim. É um kibbutz. E hoje a minha presença aqui, ela tem um único objetivo: compartilhar as atrocidades que aconteceram aqui. Porque, por incrível que pareça, tem gente que ainda não acredita que isso aconteceu. Tem gente que acha que isso é uma simulação. E eu vou falar para você, é o vídeo mais difícil que eu tô gravando aqui no canal, desde a existência desse canal. É uma barbaridade.
Am Israel,